evening, ladies and gentlemen. The best part about my presentation is part of it was covered by Dr. Neeraj Awasthi in the morning, and some of the nightmare was covered by Dr. Supratim Sen in one more session. So I'll have to just rush through so that the nightmare of going into midnight, as Sudeep put it, is we are saved of that thing. So without much ado, I'd just like to talk about a small nightmare which I had, though I don't have nightmares very often, luckily, but this was one thing which really shook me. So PDA stent, again, as I say, this one place, a procedure where you have to be on a zero error situation. You just don't have much margins. You work in millimeters and millimeters and keep doing it. So I had one such case where obviously it was a pulmonary atresia. The slides are not moving. I think why don't you go off the PowerPoint? That's better. No complications. Okay, so it was a pulmonary atresia situation. A neonate, needless to say. Extra. Needless to say, a neonate. And this was quite blue. The baby was very blue, so needed a PDA stenting. So there's no doubt about it. And as you can see, that the same a flip technique, which I learned again, the technique's name from Supratim today, that we put the baby around and we used to do it. So that was much easier taking the baby to the foot end, when the head to the foot end. So everything was going fine. We had a very good intensivist come anesthetist with us who was managing the case very beautifully. So with this confidence, we go with a carotid approach. Again, that's what I've been following, going with a carotid approach with buddy wire system most of the times. So we did an injection. We saw that we had a reasonably good PDA. It was not very difficult. So your confidence goes up. Just the way Sudeep told, that moment your confidence goes up, your tendency to do mistakes also go up. So then with these injections, you could see the branch PAs were decent. They're not very great, but decent. And everything was going very good. We passed the wire into the PA, parked it beautifully. That's a buddy wire. And finally, when we deployed the stent, it was nicely deployed it beautifully, as you can see. Probably things were going a bit too perfect. That should have been a warning bells. But as it happened, I don't know for what reason, the stent was located very beautifully, but as the balloon was being withdrawn, it just moved upwards along with it. So along with the balloon, the entire stent came up. So it was a panic situation, don't have the perfect recording of the time. But then, as you can see that for that moment, the stent had pulled up. So it was a panic situation, couldn't record it beautifully because at that moment, 10 things run in your mind, like, call the surgeon, anesthetist, the sat start dipping, maybe saturation is going down, almost going into a Brady situation. The wire was in place. Yes, what you're saying is absolutely right. The guide catheter had come back a little bit. So the support of that had been lost. As you say, the confidence things go up, and we're working on a carotid approach with a 5-French sheath in it. So 2 millimeters, the guide came behind, and when the balloon was pulled out, the stent came out along with it.
Just one thing, what could have happened other way is that there was LPA stenosis. If you had fully taken into the LPA, this could have been avoided. You wanted to place it exactly at confluence. There is a nose cone in front of the stent. That part is, we are not seeing radiologically.
Yes.
So when you deploy, because inflated balloon, that the nose cone is pushing the MPA or something.
Absolutely.
And once you deflate, then
it just pushes
it pushes up.
So
we have to have the room for the nose cone. Otherwise, we should not deploy it at the confluence. We should go into one of the branches.
Go into one of the branches. So as a learning curve goes up, sir rightly pointed out, it was a cumulative thing which happened, and we had the stent out in the aorta completely. Luckily for that moment, the balloon was still in place and the wire was in place. So as simultaneously calling out for blood and calling out the surgeon was present because it was a carotid cut down. So when we were preparing the OT, I thought just inflate the balloon on the stent and just pushed it in for that moment. And luckily it just went in. As you can see, the stent went in almost, but it couldn't go into the narrow LPA, which I was trying to put it and park it there, but then it couldn't go in. At the end of it, what I had was, we had the stent, which was partly jetting into the aorta. As you can see here, it was in the angio, it was looking much more sinister. So for that moment, again, we were debating as to pull it out, snare it out. That was when even my snare was ready. So no, we stopped at that time. Prostaglandin, we stop usually about an hour before the procedure. And that's what we were following the protocol here. So here, after all this, the sats were good, the flow was good. And the question remained that, do I leave the stent jetting out into the aorta or not? That was the question. That surgery actually makes you give sleepless nights. So my surgeon was ready to just go and take it out and do a BT shunt also for that moment. Or we try again. He takes out the stent out with a snare. I take out the stent with a snare and try again of putting it back, putting a fresh stent again. But that would have entailed a longer time with the carotid cut down. And as anyone who's doing character, you know that in millimeters, the sheath comes out quite often. So it's a panic situation. So we thought we'll let it be that way and let's observe the baby. We have a 24-hour OT surgeon anesthetist ready in our center. That's one big fortunate thing that we have is we are available all the time. So as you can see on echo, it didn't look so bad. We had the stent, the flow was quite good. Kept doing the echo, kept doing the and wishing that the stent goes in. I kept wishing, but then that didn't happen, obviously. But at the end of it, we had a decent flow going through the descending aorta. There was no obstruction. Then the baby was observed intensely for the next 5 to 10 days. We kept the baby with us and observed the baby. And the gamble actually paid off. But needless to say that the lapses were definitely sizing and procedural. I felt that moment. But yes, what the inputs which I got today were also additional that probably it was pushed back. That's also possible. We didn't snug it very beautifully. And again, the debate remains, but then there's no debate about the first attempt to be given is PDA stenting, not for a BT shunt, because the results are much better and our center, the results have gone up very well after that when we stopped doing BT shunt and started doing PDA stenting. And the decision to follow up was a wise decision. Subsequently, the child has been now almost 6 months plus 1 year and the child has undergone complete corrective surgery now. Fortunately, the baby had a very small segment atresia, has gone into an ICR kind of thing, has got free PR, but then doing very well now, and touch wood, for that moment, we didn't panic and do some untoward procedure. So I think at the end of the day, all I can say is the margin of error is very low. And at the end of it, it's about sometimes you have to take a gamble, but you should have a robust system. You need to have a good surgical team as a robust system for a backup. That's all. Thank you.